Steamlord the Ink Mechanic. Written by the Psychopath. Chapter 8. The Town Trauma. The Ink Mechanic, Sunrise, and Centurion were all at the edge of Canterlot City. They had been sent there by Steamlord after the mechanic began to complain about not seeing new things. He was extremely impatient, yet he still seemed to be calm and curious during his outbursts. Exiting the castle was already full of special reactions, so how would a city full of ponies, griffins, and so on react to an immensely tall black creature that seemed to be picking about everywhere? Sunrise stepped in front of the creature that seemed to be twisting to look in every direction of the city. He was even rubbing his arms together in excitement, but Sunrise had to play some rules before any of them did anything. "Okay, Ink, I have some things to tell you."
"Like?"
"Stay close to me and don't start poking and prodding everywhere. It's impolite and intolerable. Oh, and don't take what doesn't belong to you." Ink just stared at her for a moment before floating down the hill and into the city at an incredible speed. "Hey, wait!" Sunrise shouted as she chased after him. Centurion seemed unfazed by the whole situation, but enforced its mission and followed after the two. It wasn't until it arrived that it saw that Sunrise had little to no control on the curiosity of the Ink Mechanic. She kept scolding him and telling him that his actions were wrong, but no matter what she tried verbally, he just wouldn't listen. She even tried to use more physical forms of submission, but her claws would just pass through Ink's body. Centurion's jog turned into a simple walk as it looked at screaming ponies running away from the creature, only to go full stop once they saw Centurion's height and gaze and simply stare at him with a frightened look. Some gulped, some had their mouths remain agape, but they were generally frightened of Steamlord's new creation. Ignoring these creatures, Centurion walked towards what was a clothes store and saw that vestments of all shapes and colors were strewn about everywhere on the streets and in the store. Ink seemed to be analyzing the fabrics of each one and openly displayed his enjoyment or disgust for each particular one. Surprisingly, he didn't leave any marks on the clothes despite his body. "Oh, Centurion, great! Get him out of here! We're going back to the castle." Centurion took out what looked like a pistol with a revolving blue disc where the firing chamber should be on a revolver, but Ink stopped what he was doing and immediately slid out of the door and into the streets. "Oh, great! He's like a child! We'll split up and search for him. Also, ma'am, I apologize for the damages. Hopefully we can pay for the repairs in the future." Sunrise hurried outside and quickly disappeared as she somehow swung on a clothes pole just to swing upwards and onto the roofs of buildings. She quickly looked around in panic, but soon ran away into some random direction. Centurion did not care. It had its directive. It had to find and contain Ink's destructive curiosity, and following the trail down the road wasn't that hard after a certain distance was reached. Ponies were yelling in outrage as stalls full of food had been disturbed with the food half eaten on the floor. There were some that had the eaten half splattered next to their bodies. It was clear that Ink did not like the tastes of these things and openly showed it. There were even some that had been thrown against the ground so much he despised the taste. Centurion was on the right track. A little further down the road, however, it lost track of the Ink Mechanic. In fact, the mechanic seemed to have ignored this part of Canterlot as it had nothing new to offer. Walking down the street revealed to Centurion that this part was also unaware that Ink was rampaging about after getting an unquenchable thirst for discovery. While scanning the surrounding area, Centurion accidentally crashed into what seemed to be a rambunctious minotaur with a punk-style adult to him. His green fur was only overshadowed by what looked like a jacket made from black tar. He stood well over the robot, who ignored his feet and stared at the giant.
"Hey, who do you think you're bumping into? Whoa, you look real weird. You stepped into a chrome spray painting?"
The Minotaur, with awful mockeries, looked at his friends nearby, forcing them to laugh along with him. Centurion did not react.
What, you aren't saying anything? Oh, the silent time, huh?
A mare in the group gasped suddenly as her pupil shrank. I don't think you should touch him. He's...
Shut up! When I want you to talk, I'll say so.
The Minotaur rudely shouted at the poor mare.
As for you, I'll make sure you stay silent for bumping into me.
The giant cracked his knuckles, then sent a punch towards Centurion, who intercepted the fist with its left hand. Before its opponent could react to what just happened, the robot twisted the Minotaur's wrist and arm, then thrust powerfully, and not only did it bend the arm in the wrong direction, but it also pulled the Yeller towards it, only to let go of the arm and swipe the Minotaur aside into the nearby buildings. It then resumed its course through the city, ignoring the yells and stares it was getting. Coming across a few more treats, the ink mechanic seemed to be getting closer than anything, but that's not what caught the sight of Centurion. The heavily armed robot had stopped in place and was looking, by the corner of its ocular visor, a tiny colt receiving a gift from his mother and father outside of a rather large store. The colt seemed overjoyed by this daring-do figurine and was hopping about, only to finally hug his parents in a thank you. All three walked in Centurion's direction, only to hop back in shock the second they saw him. The little Pegasus colt even dropped his toy at the metal biped's feet. It simply looked downwards towards the toy, then back at the child, who seemed less afraid than his parents. He seemed in awe at the thing he was looking at. The same couldn't be said for the parents, who quickly grabbed the colt and his toy and galloped around the robot to sprint away. For some reason, the moment stayed longer within Centurion's memory banks, but it followed its directive and smashed through a card blocking its way. Unfortunately for the residents of Canterlot, it spotted Ink looking at a toy car in the middle of the streets, flanked by buildings and high walls. To remedy to him running away again, Centurion's back opened up to reveal 3 long pieces of what looked like a gun. Mechanical arms pulled them out and twisted them into place to form an extremely long blue rifle. The robot looked through the red scope, then fired off a shot. 3 vents on both sides, directly above the trigger of the rifle, opened up and vented out what looked like sparkling blue smoke with a grey contour. It had a peculiarity to it that would certainly make Steamlord nervous, especially as he had nothing to do with the design or creation of that gun. The shot burned through the toy car and somehow degraded the house it hit to a great husk, along with shriveling the small vegetation patch pushing through the tiles next to and under Centurion's feet by contact with the particles. Ink looked at the results of the strike on the buildings and, with his arm still in the air as if he was still holding the car, looked to his left to see Centurion. The mechanic's eyes widened exponentially.
There you are!
Ink was body slammed into the ground by Sunrise, who had jumped from a nearby rooftop. She managed to surprise Ink, so he could not turn into his liquid form in time. "We're going back to the castle. I was hoping to teach you something, but it seems that you're too excitable for your own good." "Come on, Centurion, we're going back." Centurion did as told. He did, however, reflect on the moment with the child and the 2 progenitors for longer than normal. It then started to think about its creator and the robotic constructs that came before it. Steamlord suddenly sat up and moaned, "Oh no," as he face-palmed. He was sitting at a round table with Celestia, her sister, and a few other ponies. The room was highly decorated with what looked like banners hanging from the walls and ceiling and painted portraits here and there. The room was brimming with heavily armed and armored guards. "What's wrong?" Celestia asked. "I've got a feeling that something bad happened." And here is another episode of Steamlord the Ink Mechanic. If you liked it, click that like button, subscribe, comment, and all of that lovely stuff. And if you want to talk to me personally, do come to my Discord. We have a lot of fun there. So anywho, all of that out of the way, time for your daily dose of brainwashing. Bye.